Hey guys! So this week I've been playing Motorstorm Apocalypse, which is a game for the PS3. The Motorstorm series has always been sort of like, basically like living out a Mountain Dew commercial. You're like, wee, brown, you know, all that kind of extreme, wee, you know, game. But this one's actually not set in some weird tropical island or anything. It's set in a city that's falling apart and crumbling, and there's earthquakes and tornadoes. And is it any good? Does it change the core of the game enough to screw it up, or does it take what was good and just do something slightly a little different? Well, here's my opinion of Motorstorm Apocalypse.
Motorstorm Apocalypse is a racing game where you race through the ruins of this city that's all, torn apart to pieces. That's kind of where it gets the name Apocalypse from, because it is a very apocalyptic city. And while driving through a city that's falling apart as you speed by is awesome, I was kind of hoping for Mad Max the game, where I drive around in a post-apocalyptic land and, with a little, Master Blaster pig farm simulator. Sadly, I didn't get that, but what I did get was an awesome racing game. The story mode of the game takes place over 3 days of you guys trying to race as much as you can in this ruined city before it finally breaks apart and everything dies. The story is told in this motion comic sort of cutscene in between the different races, and it's fun, and you play different characters based on, the level of difficulty that you're playing in. The story isn't anything to write home about, really, but who's really playing this game for the story? In terms of the actual racing, the game is not all that complicated. You got a button to accelerate, you got a button to brake, you got a handbrake that lets you spin around if you want, and you've got boost. Boosting is the major part of this game. You use your boost almost at all times if you can. While you're trying to focus on where your car's going and not running into things and not being driven over by bigger vehicles, you're using your boost the entire time. And while your boost is unlimited in that you can use it as much as you want, it does overheat, and if it gets too hot, you explode. So while you're racing around watching everything get destroyed around you, you're trying to maintain as much boost as possible without exploding, and finding various ways to cool down your car so that you can use more boost. There's a couple of different ways to cool down your car. You can drive through some water, run into one of the water barrels, go off a jump and let go of the accelerator for a few seconds, all kinds of stuff to cool down your car. Because you need boost almost the entire time. You use it to crash into other people, get over certain jumps that you couldn't get over otherwise. It's just a major part of the game. This game is a little outside of the normal kinds of racers I typically play. Typically, when I'm playing a racer, it's more like this.
Shift down a second, through the chicane.
Whereas this game is a little bit more like this. Neither one of them is better than the other, but I kind of typically go for the more simulated racing rather than the crazy awesome, explosion-y ones. There are a number of different vehicle types in the game, and at any moment you could be playing with all different kinds. You could be driving a little motorcycle and some guy's driving a huge semi, so obviously he can run you over if he wants to. And while motorcycles and ATVs and dune buggies do really well on dirt paths and uneven ground, the big vehicles can go through very muddy stuff and not get slowed down, so it's a real balancing act. The tracks themselves are actually really interesting and varied. Sometimes you'll be driving on normal paved streets that are just kind of falling apart, sometimes you'll go underground through subways, sometimes you're literally driving on the rooftops of buildings that are collapsing as you're going. And the tracks more often than not have varied paths that you can take as you're going, so you can take little shortcuts that maybe somebody else can't get through or didn't see. Although some tracks are a little bit more devastated and filled with rubble, so sometimes it's kind of hard to see which way you're going to go. You turn the wrong way or drive straight into a wall because you're like, I don't know where I'm going. Or even when you do crash or explode or something falls on you, there's no real penalty. I mean, you lose a couple of seconds, but it's not like game over.
This game is not bad. Certainly, it's not a bad game. It plays really well. I haven't had any really technical problems with it. It drives, it works, it does all this stuff. It's not a great game, in my opinion. It's kind of fun, but sometimes you're driving, you don't know exactly where you're going, and you crash into stuff, and it seems like you crash into things and blow up when you hit the smallest of objects. But overall, it's a really fun game to tool around in. I imagine the online play would be fun, but PlayStation Network is still down. Oh god! So if you're pissed that I can't play this online, and oh my god, your reviewers, you didn't play it online, how could you review? Well then, I don't know, yell at me on Game Trailers or YouTube or on Twitter, twitter.com/Dunkor, and tell me that I suck. But I liked it. it was enjoyable for what it was. I don't know if it's my favorite racing type game. I tend to like the simulated ones a little better, but if you're looking for like an action arcadey game with lots of explosions and all that stuff and all kinds of crazy, you know, everything just blowing up everywhere and so much Mountain Dew commercial and post-apocalyptia, you could do worse than picking up this game.